Take a look at this Argonian. This is an NPC you can find in Morrowind. He lives completely alone in a tiny hut on one of the most isolated little islands in the game. When I talked to him the other day, it felt really weird. I expected to find someone sad, lonely, maybe even depressed, but instead I found someone who sounded surprisingly energetic and lively. Okay, maybe a little crazy too. But then I decided to check out a few other NPCs who live in complete isolation, and what's interesting is that every single one seems to have a completely different mindset, even though they are all separated from people in one way or another. Have you ever noticed that? All of that makes me wonder what actually causes the feeling of loneliness. Is it really just about being alone? Or can something else create that feeling entirely? Because we've all heard stories about people surrounded by others who still feel lonely, while some people with almost no friends at all don't seem lonely whatsoever. And what's really interesting is that I actually found great examples of both situations here in Morrowind. So how can we figure out how these NPCs really feel? Well, the simplest way is probably to talk to them and try to understand them based on what they say. But you know, NPCs, just like real people, can lie, be crazy, or even drunk. So we'll look at other things too. Where they live, their stories, their problems, and even the quests connected to them, because those things might tell us a lot more as well, right? So how about that Argonian I showed you at the beginning? He has a very interesting name, Big Head. At first, that name kind of makes you think he might be some kind of genius. At first. But when you actually talk to him, you quickly change your mind.
Spoons, knives, and forks. The master puts them here for play.
He seems more like someone who completely lost it. It almost feels like he has gone crazy from being alone here for who knows how long. And I do not even see a volleyball around him to talk to. He could really benefit from having something like Head of Scourge, right? He talks about spoons, knives, and forks that his master left for him to play with. And yeah, when you look around, you can actually see a spoon, a knife, and even two forks. And one of those forks is actually pretty unique. Come closer so you can see it clearly. And check out its name. It is not an item you can find anywhere else. Things like that are very often connected to quests. So maybe it's not a loneliness that made him crazy. But to find out more about that, you cannot actually ask him directly. There is not much you can do here. You first have to find the Daedric Prince of Madness in the ruins, who gives you a quest to defeat a bullnetch with the exact fork that Big Head has in his hut. So here everything actually starts to make much more sense. Even though the Argonian sounds pretty crazy, it's not something completely made up. Big Head is touched by the Daedric Prince of Madness. Of course, that still does not explain what he means by the cake that the bullnetch is supposedly bringing him, but maybe it's better not to know.
He comes to visit, brings me cake to share, enough for all.
And you know what? After some time, his words and the way he spoke about his master started to feel strangely familiar. Do you know where am I going with this? It reminded me a bit of Gollum from Lord of the Rings, how he says master and behaves in this strange, twisted way. Besides that, Gollum is completely obsessed with the ring. Big Head really gives me that same vibe, with the Daedric Prince as his master and the fork as his obsession. And is Gollum someone who feels lonely? To be honest, I never really had that impression. His mind was always focused on the ring, and if he lost it, he always had one clear purpose, getting it back. He is so concentrated on those things that he barely seems to care about anything else. And I think it is the same with Big Head. His mind is completely occupied by his master, spoons, forks, and the big bullnetch. It is very possible that he feels like his master is always close and supporting him. Whether that is true or not does not really matter. The important thing is that he believes it. Just think about it. There are so many weird and obviously false theories in our world, and yet there are always some people who believe them. No matter how much evidence you show them, they still will not change their minds. We choose what we believe in and even how we feel. We decide how we perceive different things, even if we do not always realize it. It's like the half full or half empty glass. And it looks like this Argonian's whole life is his master. Okay, so even when living in isolation like Big Head, you still might not feel lonely at all. Do you remember what I mentioned at the beginning? Sometimes people surrounded by many others can still feel completely lonely. And we actually have a great example of that here in Morrowind. Check him out. Oh wait, we need to get closer because he's invisible. And yeah, before you tell me it's just an invisibility spell and that he is not really isolated, let me explain my point here. He is inside one of the cantons in Vivek, basically the biggest city on Vardenfell, right? That means tons of people probably pass by him every single day. And yet when we talk to him, it turns out he feels completely alone. A wizard cursed him and now nobody wants to talk to him because everybody thinks he is a ghost. And he really seems desperate. He talks about how awful it feels when nobody notices you, talks to you, and people even walk straight into you and knock you down. Does that sound a bit familiar? Maybe you or someone you know has felt completely invisible to others before, even without any magic involved. In situations like that, the fact that people are physically around you does not really matter. You can still feel completely alone. And sometimes, even if you do have friends, if you do not really trust them or feel comfortable opening up to them, you can still feel lonely. You cannot share your worries, your successes, or ask for help. And here, the invisible man is standing right next to his father's shop, yet he's not gonna ask him for help. Instead, he asks us, some random stranger. So it feels like even though he technically has family, he still has nobody he can truly rely on. And honestly, that alone can make someone feel incredibly lonely even without the invisibility spell. Oh, and let me tell you more about him. The reason he actually became invisible adds even more weight to why I think he is such a lonely NPC. He became invisible because he actually asked a wizard to cast the spell on him. He wanted everyone to leave him alone, but he stayed invisible for so long because he never paid the Telvanni wizard afterwards, so yeah, he was basically asking for trouble. But to be honest, I don't think he truly wanted people to leave him alone. I think part of him hoped people would notice his absence. Maybe he wanted someone to look for him, worry about him, or realize something was wrong. But unfortunately, it seems like during all that time, he really was alone. Yes, his father will pay you back if you use your own money to settle the debt with the wizard. But interestingly, if you speak to him before paying the debt, he gives you 75 septims and says he does not have time to deal with it because he has to run the store. And how about helping out after work? I wanted to say that he is not working 24 hours a day, but in Morrowind that is actually the case. But that is only because NPC routines were too hard to implement back then. So to me, the father does not sound like he was really worried. Overall, I think this invisible man is a really good example of someone who feels truly lonely. Okay, the next NPC I'm about to show you is also really interesting. He actually does not live very far from people, but at the same time not really close to them either. Any idea who that might be? No? Okay, I'm talking about Umbra. He stands above Suron all alone, waiting for death. Yeah, another sad story. He's an orc warrior who thinks he has nothing left to do in his life. He says he saved whole towns from packs of Daedra. He has seen wars, fights, and a lot of violence, and he was also part of it. He was killing and burning down villages. And now the only thing left for him is death. At least that's how he sees it. To me, it sounds like he does not have anyone who loves him or anyone who actually cares about him. Yeah, Big Head technically does not either, but like I said before, he has a purpose in life, serving his master, and he probably thinks his master cares about him. This orc, on the other hand, has spent his entire life in violence, and he's probably so used to it that now, without it, it feels like his life has no meaning anymore. He never learned how to live in any other way, and he likely has no one who cares about him, and no one he truly cares about either. So he might feel very lonely with no friends and no real purpose in life. And just look at all those NPCs so far. Each one is isolated in a different way. Big Head is isolated by living on an island. The invisible man is isolated by not being noticed by people, probably even without the spell. And this orc is isolated by his own beliefs. He told himself there's nothing else to do in life, and yet the only thing he has done his whole life is fight. So I'd say he has not even scratched the surface of life yet. And you know what? I think the people in Suran would probably agree with me. There are so many things you can do in a life that one lifetime is not even enough to experience them all. But you can always find the things that are most interesting to you and focus on them. Okay, let's check out someone else. This is a person who, despite living in isolation, probably does not feel lonely. This time it's a guar herder living pretty close to swampy areas. She's not exactly alone because she has her guars, but there are no other humanoid NPCs living with her. The lady mentions that one of her guars was killed and dragged off by mud crabs. She seems worried that if this keeps happening, she will have to go back back to Ter. And when you deal with the mudcrabs, she actually seems relieved that she will not have to return there anymore. From what I checked, Ter is one of the major cities on mainland of Morrowind. She says it was too hot there, but I think it might have also just been too crowded. For some reason, she chose to live here alone with her guards instead of staying in Vivek or Balmora. Here, she definitely has a lot of peace. She has a purpose in life, taking care of her guards. And animals can be really great companions in life. You know what they say, a dog is your best friend. So despite living without people, she seems to be happy here. And someone who feels lonely is rarely a happy person. She even has this great Redderun-style house, which is not something you expect to see in the wild. In most cases, you would find a simple wooden hut. So that definitely makes her life a bit more comfortable too. Okay, so who else also lives in an isolated place? Let me make it easier for you. He has a tail and you can find him in other Elder Scrolls games as well. Yes, Maik the Liar. He stands on a small island, or rather a huge rock sticking out of the water. And he is actually pretty hard to figure out. He shares a lot of interesting things, some of which I know are true, but some are probably lies. But he does not really say anything beyond that. To figure it out, you may start by looking around. He is a Khajiit, and I do not think furry fellows like that would enjoy swimming. And how did he drag a chair and a rod here anyway? That is really odd. And what is also weird is the way he looks. He seems like he's doing well in life, but the place where he stands definitely does not confirm that. Expensive shirt, extravagant pants, and a Colovian forehelm. He's definitely dressed a lot better than in Oblivion and Skyrim, where he wears a robe. And you know what? Why am I not surprised that I have no idea what's going on in his head? He is a cat after all. Cats are unpredictable and you never know what goes through their head. Maybe he's just thinking about food, about catching fish, and nothing else really bothers him. And what about the mudcrab merchant? He lives on a small rock, completely alone. This one is tricky too. From what I know, he might have a bit of a drinking problem. And you know, some people drink for fun and some to forget about life, feelings, and other things that can sometimes be painful. So my guess is he drinks to forget how lonely he is. But here's the thing, you can actually change that. Just use a command spell 1,000 times to drag him closer to where people live, or maybe better, near some mudcrab ladies. But from all the NPCs I mentioned, I still think the invisible man feels the most lonely. It looks like the feeling of loneliness is not exactly caused just by living in an isolated space. It seems to come from how you perceive the world, no matter if that perception is true or not. Having a purpose in life also seems like a huge factor. Big Head and the Guar Herder seemed pretty happy and not lonely at all to me, while Umbra, who lost his purpose, just wanted to end his life even though he could still do so many things. What do you think? All the NPCs I mentioned are ones I found while playing the game and I thought they might feel lonely. But there are probably a lot more isolated NPCs we could talk about here. Do any come to your mind? If so, share them in the comments so we can talk about them as well. Oh, and do you like discussions like this? If so, feel free to join my Discord server. We talk there about Morrowind, other games, and casual stuff. You can find the link in the video and channel descriptions. Hope you enjoyed the video. Until next time, thanks for watching.